Three things I'm currently paying attention to in the market, and I think you should too. First, I'm watching SPY, QQQ, and Bitcoin. I'm paying close attention to how this week's candle closed and how it shapes up the monthly candle. Two, paying close attention to the volume of the candle. And then three, the direction that the candle would show us. That will let me understand where the market wants to go next. Now let's dive into the charts. So looking at Bitcoin here, let's start off the monthly chart. Last week I made a video explaining how Bitcoin may potentially find its demand zone within the 65 to 63k area, and as you can see now we have Bitcoin around 67k. We've held the 65k demand, as you can see on the weekly chart. Let's take a closer look. We bounced off the 200 MA, which was around 58k, but we held the 65k demand, right? Currently the price is 67k. I am trying to see what happens from here, right? We can see this candle here showing us a high volume wick, which shows that in this area there's buyers stepping in. But do the buyers take control or the sellers dominate this chart? As you can see, we've made lower lows and lower highs, so we are forming a new downtrend. Do the bulls really step in to take control over here, or Bitcoin continues to flush lower? I think right now we are about, let's see, we are about 52% down from the highs, right? That's a lot of drawdown, but I'm liking how the demand is holding up here, and I'm liking how the bulls are showing up. I really want to see some high volume follow through here to solidify this demand hold, but that's the week stance now. Today is Wednesday 11th. I'm not seeing many buyers step in just yet. You can see from this week's candle the volume is very low, and I'm not liking how things look right here. So if Bitcoin cannot hold, let's look at things on a daily chart. If Bitcoin cannot hold 67k, then I do expect Bitcoin to go back and test the 65k and 62k demand, right? Because currently we failed to break above 72.50, 72k, right? And since we failed to break above it, we are starting to trend back down because the overall trend is bearish. So if Bitcoin cannot close this week above 67k, I expect Bitcoin to go a little lower to 65k and 62k. Now let's take a look at QQQ. Right. So last week we learned that if a stock is going higher, right, when price is trending up, we want to see rising volume in order to understand that the upward move has strength, right? And if you look at QQQ, we've been going up on a month-to-month basis, but volume is starting to dry up. Bottom here is the volume bar, right? You can see from as the month goes by, the volume is starting to decline. So I'm getting a bit cautious here with QQQ. The monthly chart is shaping up a bit odd. If I zoom in a bit, you can see we have a doji candle here and another doji candle, which this doji candle means an indecision candle. The market couldn't decide if we're gonna trend down or if we're gonna continue going higher. So we made another doji candle, and now it looks like we have another doji candle. So for 3 months straight, the monthly chart has not been able to make up its mind which direction we want to go, right? And that's making me a bit cautious, as if the market can decide where we're going, then this whole process here, or these set of candles, is just consolidation, right? Wherever there is consolidation, we may potentially have expansion, but which direction do we expand to? So let's look at the weekly chart to potentially get more clues. If you look at the monthly chart, let's look at the peak here at 640, right? When we peaked here at 640, we had a high volume candle, but the next candle that we have here brings us lower, and that's also a high volume candle. Now, could this be distribution? Right, distribution is when we have a stream swing high and a stream swing lows, and that's been happening for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, about 16 weeks, right? Because we're on a weekly chart for 16 weeks. We are seeing that whenever QQQ starts to go lower, we have high volume candles, right? QQQ on lower, high volume candle. QQQ going lower again. Around January the 26th, we saw a high volume sell. And then we saw another high volume sell again, but this candle ended up being a pivot because we see a doji here. This looks like distribution to me. And if this is distribution, then we have to start preparing ourselves for further downside, okay? So in summary, you'd say, what am I looking at for QQQ for a break, right? A QQQ break below 608.50, I start to be cautious, and I would potentially put on some hedges, because that means we may potentially lose 606 and head lower. But as of now, the bulls are still in charge. We are holding above the 50 MA, the RSI here. That means we are still in the hands of the bulls, and you can see from the break of this previous high here, previous all-time here in June 23 of 2025, the RSI has stayed, this is the RSI, it has stayed above 50, and we've been trending higher. So as long as the RSI stay above 50, I am still bullish. But if we get below 608, 606, and the RSI dips on the weekly chart right below 50, I start to get bearish, and I would be putting on some hedges to protect myself to the downside, okay? Now let's take a look at SPY. SPY has really been showing us some candles that I don't seem to be a fan of personally, because we've seen this evening star looking candle here, right? This candle here proceeded with a market downtrend. We had 4 weeks of downside movement, and then we had a high volume bounce here of the 21 EMA, and then SPY continued to trend higher. But as you can see, we've been going higher, right, but on lower volume, hence the arrow over here, right? We've been trending higher on lower volume. That's making me a bit wary as well, because that tells me that from this note here, right, price trending up plus a lower volume is not a good sign. That means that could be a trap, a potential trap, right? So I want to understand, and I also want to get confirmation. How do we close this week? Because zooming in, if we close the week below 690, you have every reasons to be bearish, because this looks like bearish divergence for a long time. We've been diverging for about 8 weeks now, right? You can see SPY is going higher, RSI is taking lower, right? And that's bearish divergence. So I would say SPY below 690, you can put on some hedges to protect yourself to the downside. We have room all the way back into this major demand zone here at 680, 677. That is the game plan here, okay? Let's protect ourselves. And if SPY also gets above 700, I would recommend you take off hedges. But this is not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold. But this is what Eric will be doing with his money, okay? Eric will be looking to hedge if SPY gets below 690, and if SPY gets above 693, I'll take the hedges off the table, because that means we are regaining bullish momentum and we can potentially retest 700 on SPY. So these are the 3 things I am watching in the market currently, and I hope you had a good time. Catch you next week. Peace.